Hello there, people of the internet. My name is Oduor Jagero, and this is Political Headache. Today, I am in the studio with Omondi Chuka, the professor. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
How is life?
Life, beautiful, from my view.
And the state of our politics, what would you say? You want this close to you like that? Yeah. What is the state of our politics?
Our politics is getting more interesting. 2027 has few outcomes, many of which are returning Ruto back to the government.
Yeah. What do you think about returning Ruto back to government?
I myself do not like it. It's not my favorable outcome, but I don't see any person who has convinced me as of yet that he will give a better alternative to his style of governance.
So if the status quo were to remain the same, then Ruto is the man.
Ruto is the man.
Really? That's a huge turnaround from Ochuka because
just being factual.
And
it's only a fool who doesn't change his mind.
That's real politics. I don't know. I've not changed my mind actually from the coordinates that I had before when we were having the conversations. But I think at some point you have to be really honest. There is the aspiration of politics.
Yeah.
The kind of ideal politician we want to have at the helm of the apex of governance. Yeah. And then there's the reality on the ground, which sometimes you don't have to bulldoze against, which I think if we are looking at the politics of ODM, if I have to rope them in, is something that they are actually really considered. It's the biggest headache currently. Do we chuck back to the streets or do we work with whatever convention that Raila Odinga Baba left in place? Yeah.
Do you have a feeling that actually Baba wanted to support Ruto in 2027, or the agreement probably behind the scenes was that, okay, I'm going to help you hold on to this until 2027, and then just before 2027, we are going to sort of have another breakfast?
Most likely, because we were also staring at the sunset years of Baba, so most likely it would have softened enough to ease the country from very militant politics to a more dialogical. It's just dialogues more and consultation. So most likely, I think maybe, in my opinion, I think the agreement would have only reached 2027, but upon there they would have revised. It's it's the nature of Raila's political pedagogy to just keep the cards very much to his heart, and remain very anonymous. And we saw that happening where people were wondering, this guy is in government or not? But there's also a bigger sentiment of, I am no longer the Raila of the 90s or even the 2007 one. No. I am more of a bigger grandfather who is looking at things from a more pragmatic and softened place, and therefore conversations are at the center of it. Consultation are at the center of politics, and sometimes that means you have to even really work with people that are people have already baptized as your sworn enemy. So I think maybe they would have revised, but I think the agreement would have still taken on course as they had early agreed.
We have Mundalo. Mundalo, how are you doing?
Very fine.
Are you happy with how Chuka is looking at 2027?
No, Chuka is becoming very objective by the way.
That's to say I'm a yes man.
When you support the government, you become very objective.
Very objective guy.
How so?
No, because you see, it is not necessarily because of actually he hasn't even supported the government. He has just given an honest analytical perspective of exactly how things are, because he's just trying to say that when you look at 2027, he's looking at not the politics as his heart wishes, but he's making a comparison of you as the status quo is, because we already have players that want to be president of this country. When you look at them and you compare with the sitting president, what is the honest view? And I totally agree with him that most of the people that we have today, if not all of them, when you compare them with the President William Ruto, then he's best fit among all of them in two fronts. One, in terms of a person who can win the election, and two, in terms of a person who has a promise for the country. Most of the others are just regurgitation because they have had a chance before. Most of them have had over 30 years in government before, and so I want to wonder what is this they want to now offer. Most of them have a history that does not necessarily smell so good. So there's nothing new that they really want to bring. And to that extent, I totally agree with Ochuka. And then when I look at, there's this thing you asked him about whether Raila was going to support President William Ruto. And I've always wondered why that is a question, and yet Raila had answered it.
Did he?
Yeah. It was very obvious that Raila was in the broad-based government to stay. In every other relationship that Raila Odinga had, rarely did he involve his political party. In this particular agreement, in this particular one, he involved ODM as a political party. And remember, even before, as he was preparing ODM at 20, one of the main guests that Raila had already invited before his own demise was President William Ruto. So for me, I look at it and I feel like for the first time, Raila's son had become president. And I think Raila was going to support his own son to the very end. Because in the history of the people who had become presidents, none of them had been Raila's son. And William Ruto was a true son of Raila Odinga, a person who has been mentored, a person who has grown up in the politics of Raila Odinga. And so it is a rather obvious thing that Raila Odinga was going to support William Ruto. I wonder why journalists keep making it a question. Yeah, because it is something he had actually answered.
People of the internet, we are going to be talking about Luhya politics, and the person that is in our heads today is Natembeya. He's been walking a lot, as the name suggests. But before we go to that, we are contextualizing and probably starting with a commercial break. Commercial breaks are started from the very beginning. I wonder though, Choka, because this one is part of that conversation. Because if Natembeya once said that he wanted to be president and then bolted from that very idea and decided that's not something that he wants to follow up on more, when you say that you are disappointed, like a lot of people are saying that they're disappointed with the opposition, what would you have seen? What would you rather have seen by now? That would say, okay, we have people that actually want to dislodge the president, and they have got something better that they're putting on the in front of Kenyan and saying that if this is what they want to do to the Kenyan, then I would rather Ruto steps aside in 2027 and somebody else takes that. What would you do? What would you want to be seeing by now?
One of my biggest disappointments with the outfit of opposition is how, one, they are clueless, and then two, reactionary. Like, the idea of clueless comes with, you see, it's very easy to be a critic.
Yeah.
It's very easy. I think it's the easiest thing, because every now and then when somebody is at the center stage of things, whether it is a father, whether it is somebody, a CEO at a company, or whether it is the president, there's always a good side that they're doing. Even if clumsily, there's also always something that they're doing very badly off. So it's always easy as a critic to just pick on the bad side and just run with it. So one of the things you could actually see is when you see a house or a home that is very disorganized and there's a lot of noise and chaos and rocking chairs, you definitely know that that's a chaotic place. That's not somewhere that has an organized sentiment of soul for the country, because that replicates whatever it is they intend to do with the country. If they were given that very same opportunity, that same rocking chairs and that same noise would be the ideal situation of the day. Number two, I have not seen I know Diambo Tieno usually says there's no such thing as a manifesto in Africa. Yeah. But I want to believe that there is. Yeah. And manifestos come in very many forms. There's the declared roadside things that many African presidents and politicians do. And then there's a document or a blueprint that articulates their sort of like the aspirations they have for the country. And in articulating, they don't just seek to overhaul everything, because that is impossible. There's also looking at how do we respond to situations or critical issues that are actually ailing or plaguing the country. One of them is finances. One of them is our debt. One of them is healthcare. And healthcare, very personal to me, has been having issues in terms of how we reform NHIF to SHIF. It's at the center of things. And I believe that SHIF is one of the most revolutionary systems that if we can actually do it right, then we will change something for this country for a very long time. So those are some things that I'm also looking in terms of education has been really struggling, and we're wondering where exactly is our education heading to. So I'm not seeing these people responding to this, even these four, let alone these four critical issues in a way that can actually, because we are a country that is wounded. And when somebody is wounded, you don't want to keep on saying, why did you jump over the cliff? Why did you vote in Ruto? Yeah. You want to hold them close and comfort them. and you want to be empathetic, you want to be humane. And one way of actually being humane is actually the kind of words you use. Your words have to be affirming. Your words have to be assuring. Your words have to, even if you do not know for certain that this is the direction you want to take, you at least have a plan. And that plan is not just about criticizing Ruto or what Ruto is not doing correctly. It's also, what do we have to offer? And I think that's sometimes where maybe Raila used to beat most politicians, because he had sort of some fatherliness. Because when, let's say, Nairobi has beaten you and you want to go back to the village and you are wounded, because they usually say, Rangach, the gate is the only place that accepts you in all forms and seasons. When you're battered by life, when you have a bit of some kg of sugar you want to take to your mom, when you go back and you're wondering, all my mother and my father are all buried underground. You're wondering, what am I going to find home? That gate receives you. And I'm thinking in terms of, that is the same thing we are requiring of a politician. We don't always just have to be competent all the time. Sometimes we need to have discernment, and discernment comes with the kind of articulation you have. You have a full grasp of the country, and the grasp is, where is education, where is healthcare, where is agriculture.
The opposition does not have it.
They don't have that. Tell me which politician is actually articulating that. No.
Matiang'i?
No.
Even the Chief Justice?
No. When you say
Says the rule of law.
no, the rule of law is a beautiful thing, and if you were to look at it as the only solution to the problems that we are facing, then I think we are being dishonest.
Yeah.
We have all the good laws. Today I was writing an article about healthcare, and of course in relation to ODS debt, and I realized that everything I'm trying to say has been said somehow.
Yeah.
Has been said somehow. The bigger bravery needed in this country is somebody who's going to fold their sleeves and say, I myself do not know the full length of what we are dealing with, but this is the plan I have. Will this plan work? We cannot know until we actually do the actual work. And sometimes you will actually really fuck up around the same issues. Yeah.
Going to the reason why we are here on this table is about Luhya land. Mundalo, it's a very difficult, place to understand, Luhya land. When you go to Luhya land, it's pretty easy.
Buy one, get one free. Is it the same case anymore?
Yeah. It's complicated because the father of the home is no more, and children are squabbling, but it's always been fairly easy. If you go to the mountain, the direction is fairly easy. When you go to Luhya land, things start to be very grey and shaky.
Yeah.
And you're wondering. So right now we have always had, for maybe 10 years, we have had Moses Wetangula and we have Musalia Mudavadi.
Yeah.
Then there is an entrant, Natembeya, who is making a lot of noise, and we were talking to you before. By the way, do you think Natembeya is like? When you look at Natembeya and Malala, do you see a similarity of sorts?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really. I don't see similarity between Natembeya and Malala. They belong to two worlds. Unless you're just talking about the popularity. The popularity
and the drama around them.
That they are gathering. And one is man-made and one is organic. Yeah. Unfortunately, the one whose creation is organic has more difficulty sustaining it. Yeah, I don't like the fact that you didn't allow me respond to what you asked Ochuka.
Which is what? About the government.
I don't know whether you have conveniently because he has conveniently ensured that he doesn't want me to comment about that aspect.
You could comment on it, and then you could comment on it, start with it, and then talk about Malala, but then also paint for us a picture of. Because people, I think yesterday we were at an event, and I was asking somebody about Luhya land, and he couldn't make head out of it. What is going on there? What is running on there? I mean,
true.
Yes.
Now let me start with very briefly the matter you didn't want me to comment on. And let me tell you this, Jagero. William Ruto is the easiest person to defeat in 2027. But he's also the hardest person to defeat in 2027. Why? Because William Ruto is the first president of Kenya who is dealing with a very conscious voting bloc. We have come to a point where, as a country, it has gone beyond just the census of tribes. And most of the time, we always went to the election with the census of tribes in mind. So as opposition, you would come together and then put together a census of tribes. And if your tribes are more than the sitting president, you become the winners. Now, that politics has moved, and President William Ruto has moved it away from that. And you look at the politics as it is today, you look at the voter, and the voter is more interested in an agenda and what exactly you are going to do. The voter is more interested in, as you say that there is a problem with SHA, what is your alternative? The voter is more interested in, when you say the university funding model has a problem, what is your alternative? The voter is more interested in you when you're talking about the President Ruto's e-learning, that we now have an e-university. If you are saying that there is a problem, the Open University, if you are saying that there is a problem with the Open University, and if you have a problem that that university is actually providing the same degrees and diplomas and PhDs at half the normal university, then what is your alternative? Now, that is the reasoning of the voter today. Unfortunately, the opposition that we have today is still doing census of tribes. And now that is where the problem is. Because you look at them and all they are doing is that we are coming together as communities. And I hear Rigiji, he kept telling Matiang'i, go back to your own people. Because he wants to count the kisses. Yeah? Rigiji is more interested in how many kisses. Because he cannot decipher, he cannot understand Matiang'i beyond kisses. So to him it's head count of the kisses. The other one is head count of the Merus. The other one is head count of the Kambas. And that formula cannot be able to beat President William Ruto because the voter has moved on from that. And when you look at the crafting of the candidature,
have they though?
I look at it. They do. Why do I think so?
Or to an extent.
To an extent,
yes. Because that is how we lost in Azimio.
Yeah.
Because most of what we're doing in Azimio is the head count of tribes. And we still believed that you can still be able to anchor your agenda on these tribes. President William Ruto went beyond that, and he gave people the bottom-up economic agenda. And he made the campaign about the hustler versus the dynasty. He made the campaign about a certain issue. And with that, he was able to beat Azimio. You cannot be able to say that the voter is retrogressing. The voter can only be getting better. So in 2027, it's only going to get better. And I have seen it, that even the people who do not necessarily think President Ruto is doing anything, when they listen to the opposition, they are the same ones who are saying, but wait a minute, what is your alternative? What are you telling us? That is the conversation even in the street. They are telling you, fine, I have a problem with President Ruto here. But you see, it cannot always be Ruto this, Ruto that. You realize that there were days when Rigiji went live and there were millions and thousands of people who were on his page to listen to him. The numbers have kept dropping because people cannot keep listening to what Ruto is not doing right. People are asking, so what is the alternative that you have? And that is where the problem is. And that is where there is a reality of a problem with the opposition, because they simply cannot give an alternative plan. And even if they try to give, again, the people will ask them, but what did you again do? Because most of them have a history. They have been in government before. You see, it's different, Jagero, like for yourself, and I hear you are running for member of parliament.
The daggers are out.
It is a bit easier for you because you can anchor your campaign on a promise.
I don't know why we.
But for someone else,
I don't know why we are chickening out, because Odhiambo is also. I saw him chickening out. That no, was just a good photo.
No, Odhiambo told us he already has a working place. You remember, so let's not go into, because he's not here.
Yeah.
But then you see, for you it's easier. Why? Because you can anchor your campaign on a promise. But for someone who has been MP before, the people want to ask, but what did you do when you were there? And now that is the tragedy Kalonzo Musyoka finds himself in, because people want to ask, 30 years in office, vice president, what exactly did you do? People want to ask themselves, you are coming back, you are telling us now you are Matiang'i, 10 years in this, what exactly did you do? And now that is where the troubles of these guys begin, because Ruto is telling you, this is what I have done. You cannot be busy telling people this is what I plan to do, yet you are there. They are going to remind you that when you are there, please show us a blueprint. At least tell us there is something you did. Don't just tell us that I did shuttle diplomacy as vice president. It cannot add up.
I don't know why we keep going back to this thing, but we will go to the Luhya issue later on. A lot of people are complaining that we have Wamunyoro.
Yes.
We have Kalonzo.
Yeah.
And we have Martha Karua.
Yeah.
I don't know who else is there.
Yeah.
That all these people who claim that the country is in such a big hole cannot give us the formula of getting out of the
out.
hole.
Yeah.
So what is the reason why they have not sat down and presented to Kenyans what exactly they want to do? Do they want to have all the numbers and everybody in the room? Because I see there are still people out there, people like Wanjigi, that they're still reaching out to.
Yes.
I don't know who else, apart from Wanjigi, by the way, they're reaching out to. Are they all not in the fold?
They are not. They keep. They use the word united opposition more than they actually unite.
Yeah.
Is that so?
Yeah, because when you look at it, the reason why they are not doing what you're saying is because it's the hard job to do. It is very heavy to do that heavy lifting, because going down to give an alternative requires you to think. It requires you to go to the people with a semblance of a working plan. You cannot just say agriculture. No, you must tell us how. You cannot just tell us industrialization. You must tell us how. You cannot just say youth unemployment. You cannot just say President Ruto is giving youth 50,000 each in the wards and it can't work. You must be able to tell us that we must appreciate that, okay, that is what Ruto has done.
What might work?
Now, what might work from you? You can't just be able to diss the project of the government without an alternative. And most of these people, Jagero, are traditional politicians. They are used to spewing the problem to the people, because that is what they have done traditionally. You tell the people about the problem, you repeat the problem, you again repeat again about the problem, and then you get elected. But this time, the voter...
And you're thinking that the voters are seeing the bullshit through it.
Yes, the voter is getting better, Jagero. Voter is getting better. When you keep looking at it, even you look at... recently, I saw Senator Sifuna in Parliament doing some usual populist stunts. And this time he was doing a stunt about SHA and saying how SHA is not working. And he gave a lot of bile about it in Parliament. And he posted on his Facebook. I want to dare you to go and check the comment section. There were lots of Kenyans who kept telling him, no, we agree with you on many issues, but on this one you are wrong. This SHA is actually working. Now, that is the kind of voter we are dealing with, Jagero. Our voter today is not necessarily as emotional as before. He is not hating leaders just because his feelings do not agree with them. No, he's willing to give them a chance and reason. And when it works, they'll tell you it's working. If it's not working, they'll tell you it's not working. That's the difference. But before, we never used to have that. We just used to have a census of our tribes. So if Jagero is running and is Luo and I'm Luhya, my responsibility is to be against him, and that is all. Now, the voter today is not necessarily reasoning like that. Especially the young voter, even the Gen Zs, they do not have a love-hate relationship with anybody. No. They're just saying, let the thing work. And if it works, they will accept and say, no, this one is actually working. And that is why the Martha Karuas are having it difficult. Because then Martha Karua has to explain to this voter what she did in the over 40 years that she's been in government. She has to then tell the people, what did she do as a member of parliament? Before we talk about Ruto, before we complain about William Ruto and what he has not done, can you as Martha Karua tell us what you did as a member of parliament? Can you as Kalonzo Musyoka tell us why President Ruto today is launching a road to your home when you are vice president? So that is the kind of conversation that this voter wants to have. To your own home today. Yet you've been in power for over 30 years. Now, those are the conversations that this voter today, they are very painful and hard conversations that this voter wants us to have. This voter wants Maraga to tell him, please, beyond telling us that you annulled a presidential election, what else should make you a president? Because a president, not a chief justice.
If I choose to digress, why is Ruto doing that to Kalonzo Musyoka?
He's not doing that to Kalonzo Musyoka. He's doing that to Kenya. It's Kalonzo who did that to himself, Jagero. Because you see, what Ruto is doing is that Ruto is just launching roads in every other part of the country. Just one of those parts happens to be Kalonzo's home, and the road happens to be one that goes to his house.
And anyway, let's go to Luhya land.
Okay,
paint for me a picture of Luhya land. And because a lot of people also are saying that it is not Luhya is not a tribe. Recently a lot of people are saying so much about Luhya land.
Yeah. First of all, Jagero, you have to understand that Luhya politics is a bit different. It's not like the Luo politics, the Kikuyu, the Mount Kenya type of politics, where it's one man says it and all of us follow. We belong to, it's a community that at some point was very united. There's always this thing about Luhya is disunited. Not necessarily, because when a community gets to a point where it loses a political leader, sometimes it is inherent that there is a lot of people take time before they get direction. Is what is going to happen to the Luo community, to yourselves. You might soon become like the Luhya community.
Yeah, and so I'm very excited about it. Very excited about it.
So the Luhya community had Kijana wa Malwa.
Yes.
And there was a lot of unity around Kijana wa Malwa. But you see, unity around a leader is always inspired by purpose. It does not just happen. And that is the problem with the leaders we have today. They think you can bully a community into uniting. It's not possible. You cannot declare yourself a king of a community, for instance. People, there was no time that Luhya sat down and agreed that they will follow Wamalwa. No, it's because of the purpose under which Wamalwa came with and the hope and aspiration that he instilled in the people. And then the people found it viable to actually walk with him, because they could be able to see that he's showing them not the way and he's walking the way. Now, after the loss of Kijana wa Malwa, now there was a bit of a problem, because then the community was not ready for that death. It occurred instantly, and not just with the community. Actually, remember, Kenya mourned heavily at the time. Now, when that happened, every other political leader who felt like they can be equal or they were measuring up to the size of Kijana wa Malwa, then thought they can all become kings. So everyone, and that is how the Luhya community got shredded into now various sections. So we had Kakamega. So when you go to Kakamega, you find probably Oparanya becomes the leader. You go to Bungoma, you find Wetangula carving out that section. You go down to Vihiga, you find Musalia Mudavadi. So then the Luhya community became segmented into the various regions, more or less almost the counties. So, and that's where the community started losing it, because then it is not just that the community was not able to follow one person, but first, the leaders could not be able to agree, and two, nobody could inspire the people enough for them to be able to follow them. And now that is what created those various divisions.
Bungoma, when you say Kakamega, when you say the other parts, do you mean sub-tribes? For example, when you talk about Kakamega, it's a sub-tribe, or what is it?
Of course, again,
or is it's a geographical location? I'm
using them more as geographical locations, but again, according to then how also the Luhya setup is, it automatically again falls into various sub-tribes. Yeah, because I always say Luhyas are as many as Kenyans. Well, Kenya has 42 tribes. Luhya can almost have the same number of sub-tribes again. So that actually falls, because you'll go to Kakamega, you'll find the Bukusus in Bungoma and the Tachonis. You'll find the Tesos in Busia. You'll go and find the Maragolis in Kakamega. So again, it falls like that. So the various interests. So
within
of
Kakamega,
the community,
you could actually have more than 3 tribes.
Yes.
Around
you would have more than 3 within Kakamega.
All right, people of the internet, I hope that you're enjoying this episode very much. And I just had a break to tell you about my new book. You know, everybody says that there is no job, and that is true. Also, that was me 10 years ago. The problem is that everybody is trying to get a job in their town, in their city, in their marketplace. They ask friends for jobs, mothers call uncles, uncles call brothers, but there are no jobs. Let me tell you what no one is telling you. Jobs migrated online. What I actually mean is there are many, many jobs around the world, and there is no one to do them except you. I work for Americans myself. I work for Europeans. I work for the Chinese. I work for the Australians. I work for the Canadians. And so, because I have done so much for myself, I said to myself, you know what? I should compile what I've been doing for the last 15 years. So in 2024, I wrote a digital book called Goldmine 18 Hustles for Africans. And then in 2025, AI came. People say AI is taking away our jobs. And for me, I'm going to say false. There are actually AI jobs. Jobs are not being taken by AI, but there are new jobs online that are there because of AI. Now, mimi ni nani? I created more jobs. And for now, in my new book, we have 25 online and offline jobs that you can leverage on if you do not have a job. So in this powerful volume 2, I share 25 new actionable online hustles specifically researched and tailored for Africans. My new book provides clear step-by-step guidance drawing from my extensive experience and research, including the mistakes I've made and lessons I've learned over the 15 years that I have worked online. So what can you do online? You can become an executive assistant for busy folks in Europe, America, Canada, and get paid for tasks like watching videos and taking online surveys. Okay? You can build a lot of things. Build a business as a virtual assistant, start an e-commerce shop without capital, be an affiliate marketer, or you can also become actually an English tutor and tens of AI jobs. If you have a job, that is fine. But I also know that you can buy this book for that brother, for that sister, for that mother, for that cousin, for that husband who is watching Netflix all day at home. Buy it for your friend who is always asking for cash. You know that friend. Now, all the information is on the description below. You can also inbox me, you can WhatsApp me, or go to my website, which is odworjigero.co.ke. And now, back to programming.
So that is how the segmentation then happened. Now, most of the leaders then started marshalling their own sub-tribes instead of marshalling the entire community. So the competition stopped from being purpose-driven to our own person-driven. So that now, when you are putting up a campaign as a person from Bungoma, you are now marshalling people using where you come from more. So that we started having presidential candidate Musalia Mudavadi, then we'll have Wetangula supporting someone else. And when this one supports the other one, now it becomes about we as Bungoma people, we are in government. Then we as Kakamega people, we are now in the opposition. So there was no agenda for the community. And now that's where we left, where that whole narrative of unity got lost. So it started being more community-based. So the other time when the elements of community are now coming in, I can be able to see Natembeya trying to really push an agenda that is more community-driven. Yeah. But now he's also using the problems of the community to ride to the top. He's not providing solutions to the community. He's purely riding on problems that, existential problems that exist to ride to the top, and also using the hate for the leaders that are there. Now, that again is not a very good ground to be able to gather leadership.
The people you'd say are frustrated by the leaders that they have right now within Luhya community.
Yes, you see, we already have perceived Luhya leaders. Yeah, because that is Wetangula, Mudavadi, and Oparanya always counts himself among them. Now
counts himself, but you seem to agree.
Yes, because
largely that Mudavadi and Wetangula are leaders of the community, but when it comes to Oparanya, you say that he claims. And then
why I'm saying that
is also claiming.
Why I'm saying that, Jagero, is because when you look at the people of Kakamega, the people of Kakamega and their voting and how they actually exercise their vote, Kakamega has 12 constituencies. Majority of those constituencies have ODM members of parliament. Now, if majority have ODM members of parliament, near 3/4, that essentially shows you that the direction was as per Musalia Mudavadi. And that's why I'm telling you that the segmentation of the communities like that. You have Kakamega, Bungoma, Busia, like that. Yeah? So that is why I'm like, he almost rightfully counts himself as part and parcel of the leaders within the Luhya fraternity. So then they become actually all the three. Now, do we have people who have feel disadvantaged and disenfranchised by this leadership? True. Because there are problems that have existed in the community that have continued to be there since I was actually born. And most of the time, our leaders as a community only come to us when they need us for the numbers, when they need the community for protection. That is the time they remember that they are actually Luhya leaders. But after that, they become independent in their own. Because the only reason a community will follow you is because of purpose. There must be something heavier There must be something that you're actually driving at. And that's what the Luhya community has failed to have. Most of our leaders have not driven purpose within the community. When you ask a Luhya in Kakamega or in Bungoma why exactly they should be very annoyed when one of the Luhya leaders is fired, they really do not have a reason. And that's why I can assure you, Jagero, that most of the leaders from my community, when you eject them out of government, there will be no demonstrations and all those kind of things that you see with other communities. Why? Because the people have not felt the impact of the leaders. Because you must make the people feel the impact. When the people feel the impact, then it will be natural for them to say, no, you cannot be able to go with this. The way you people used to react with Raila Odinga. Because when he is in government, you people used to see why he is in government. You would be able to have people appointed in government. You'd be able to have water hyacinth removed from Lake Victoria and such kind of things. But now the Luhya community has not yet really had very serious reason. And that's why it is easy for someone to try and push it around. That's why you're saying it's a very tough game in Chwele, and yet it's just a by-election of a ward. It's an MCA candidate, but yet it's becoming so murky until it's becoming violent. Yeah. It simply shows
who is interested.
There is a gentleman there called Wekesa, and the other one. There is a candidate of Ford Kenya, and there is a candidate who is more or less an opposition candidate. So it's basically a war between Ford Kenya, which is Moses Wetangula's party, and the other party now, which is being supported by the sitting member of parliament of that region called Majimbo Kalasinga. And now Majimbo is now being joined by the likes of Natembeya. But give it to Kalasinga, in truth, the Natembeyas of this world are just joining him late in the campaign. It's just the other day that they are joining him in that campaign.
Yeah.
But the reality is that because of the people of Western region not feeling enough purpose and not being grounded heavily by their leaders, that's why there is all that fragmentation. Because the last time there was purpose-driven politics in the region was when Mamalwa was there. The moment we lost to Mamalwa, there has not been clear purpose in our politics, clear purpose in our governance. And even when we are in government, or we claim to be sometimes, we really do not feel it. When you get to the common person at the bottom of the pyramid, they don't feel it. And that's why they do not have passion in the politics and the voting. And that's why you'll always be able to hear the narratives of Luhyas are not united. Luhyas are divided. They do not vote in one basket. They don't, because they have not been given reason by their leaders to really be able to be like that. And that is where the problem is. Yeah.
The other question I want, do you have a Kasipul, an MP, a Kasipul's kind of situation in Luhyaland right now?
By a Kasipul situation, what do you mean?
Like the one for MCA. Do you have an MP by-election going on right now?
In Western region? Yes, there's a by-election in Malava. And there's also a by-election, and that's a constituency by-election. And then there's another one in Bungoma, which is a ward. So there's an MCA replacement, and there's also an MP. And that's one in Bungoma County. The other one is in Kakamega County.
Yeah, but would you say that if, so for example, right now, what is Natembeya is with Majimbo?
Yes.
And we know that Natembeya sort of wants to hijack the Luhya,
yeah.
You know, and run it by himself.
Yeah.
Majimbo is joining him?
It is actually Natembeya joining Majimbo, because the candidate belonged to Majimbo.
No, I'm not talking about the by-election.
Okay.
The
politics.
The
scramble for the
for the Luhya community.
Now, whereas Natembeya has given him a fair chance, he has been able to rise to the level where most Luhyas have gotten to a point of saying, wait a minute, we seem to be having some sort of sense here. When he started his Tawe movement.
Tawe movement.
Yeah, which I always argue that it was born on TikTok.
Tawe movement.
Yes, because it started from the grassroots and got born generally on social media and grew like that. It was not necessarily that it is something he sat down and curated. It is something that he found himself having. Now, moving on from there now requires a political strategy around it. So he got himself at a place where people would be looking at him and saying, yes, we seem to be having a direction, but he has failed in terms of now galvanizing and strategizing politically to be able to make sense of it. Why so? He still enjoys a bit of popularity in the name, But now this popularity needs to be given purpose that it can now be driven and turned into a vote. Yeah? And now he's failing in where is he driving people to? Because the only narrative he is giving them.
Then we should be able to stop there and ask, what is the concept of Tawe?
The concept of Tawe in Luhya simply means I have refused. Yeah? And he's simply telling the people that I have refused the leadership of the two, Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula, which is a good catchphrase. It can get you the people who feel the same way. He is saying that I have refused the jobs of being watchmen in Nairobi.
Okay.
Which, if you ask me, I personally feel it's an insult to the community. But anyway, that is how he has...
That is what he's saying.
That is what he's saying in the Tawe movement. But now, that has given him a catchphrase. But now, what is not happening is, he has now not given it purpose. Whereas we agree that we have rejected this. But the only thing that can make us stay together is where do we agree on going? Now, that is the promise he doesn't have.
So then,
he is not giving people...
he suffers the same problem with the United Opposition.
More or less the same. Actually the same. Because there is nowhere he is taking people. He's only anchoring people on an existential problem. And after that, he has nowhere he's taking them. That is one. And number two, he has no strategy around it. Because you cannot be able to see a brain work around it. He is still believing that the thing will retain... When you say
brain work, do you mean manifesto?
Not necessarily. Because what I mean is, in a political strategy, you can be able to see an element of something that has been planned and curated to serve a certain purpose. Yeah? You can be able to give it to Rigiji. He has semblance of some strategy in how he creates the messaging. He will do several interviews, this number of interviews per month. He will be here and he'll be there, and this will be the messaging. Now that is not there with the...
But even the Rigiji, the messaging is Tawe.
Yes, but now you see that his messaging him, he has already embraced it that way. And it is not an accident. They have agreed that with us, in fact, he has said it himself that we are promising nothing.
He has said that?
Yeah, he has said it himself that we are promising nothing. The only thing we are anchoring on is Ruto must be one term. He's very clear. That is the only thing he's and that's what I'm telling you, to not work.
Isn't that a bit problematic? Because
it is, and that's why we told you.
To people who understand and where they want to go as a country, then that becomes very problematic.
And that's why we told you, Jagero, at the beginning, that movement cannot beat William Ruto. Now, when you come to Natembeya, he's accidental. Because he doesn't have a strategy. He's moving with the euphoria that was pre-existing. He's hoping that euphoria will be able to be there forever. He's not putting up any strategy around it to be able to ensure that it is sustainable. And that's why you can be able to see that as popular as his name might be, you see him, but you don't see any member of parliament who works with him. You don't see MCAs with him. Ordinarily, for a political leader who has garnered such kind of momentum, we will be able to see a lot of members of parliament and MCAs wanting to move closer to you, even for the purposes of their own election. The moment that is not happening, you know that there is a problem. And now that is where Natembeya is. So to me, he looks more like a lone ranger, like a person who got lucky to become popular. And after he got lucky to become popular, he thought you can sustain it using luck.
At some point,
what he fails to understand...
At some point, the government was really on his neck trying to scare him around. What had he done?
No, the government was not on his neck trying to scare him around. The government was saying that there was a corruption scandal. I don't know how we find it differently. No, Jagero.
We know how the government
No, Jagero.
When the government wants to scare you around like a little rabbit.
No. If you steal my phone, Jagero, and I say you must produce my phone, that is not being scared. You simply can be able to say...
It's also interesting that once you stop misbehaving around the government,
yes,
those cases of yours just
pop up.
Yeah.
I don't agree, Jagero, because we have someone like Waititu, who is part of UDA, campaigned for President William Ruto, but when push came to shove, he was able to be taken in despite being a UDA member.
But the utility of Waititu is not as compared to Natembeya.
Is that so?
Yes.
How so?
Because if you weigh these two people in, just I do agree with you to actually a certain point where Natembeya is a child who gets very lucky most likely skipped to class 4, and now he's wondering, what do I do with this math, this table? Because that's when we started doing multiplication table. And that needs strategy. And it also needs weight, really. It needs sort of like a plan. Like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Over time, the Tawe movement started weaning off. And I think that's the same problem that Waititu got to a certain point. Because at some point, Waititu used to command the street. And there were very few alternatives, like in Asonko, all these people. And then at some point, that political capital went off. And therefore, it was easy for him to be an alternative, to not even appear in the scene anymore. And that's why I'm saying, if these people were to be compared, Natembeya is still commanding a certain suspicion of what could he be? What else could he be? Yes, it has not gathered the momentum yet. So what could he be?
And that is what Ruto is.
Yes,
that is what makes Ruto scare him with those kid coaches.
Yes, it's kind of like starring the pond and finding out, do we have fish or not? And once you realize that there's no fish here, you're like, okay, this person can make noise because there's no political consequence on him.
Yeah.
He thinks, I think, Jagero, Natembeya was a product of luck. Unfortunately, he keeps thinking.
He didn't start on June the 24th.
He thinks luck will continue being the strategy. And he needs to understand that whereas hope is very good and it makes all of us alive, and whereas all of us live because of hope is not a strategy. Yeah.
Odhiambo said that you need hope to be elected. You need to be preaching hope in order for you to be elected.
We're not. Mundalo is not saying that we do not need it.
Yes.
It must not be the only thing.
Yeah.
Actually, it is not the strategy.
Yes.
Because the mere fact that we are even doing this podcast, Jagero, is because we are hopeful that it will get uploaded.
Yes.
Because it's not a live show.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now that cannot be our only strategy. We must have an editor.
Exactly.
And then we must have someone to work on the socials. And then we must have someone who will upload it.
Okay.
We cannot only depend on the fact that we are hopeful that it will be uploaded.
Explained.
I get it.
So Natembeya is banking on the hope that it will be uploaded. And then he has no editor. In fact, he has no cameraman. He even has no social media manager.
That's a bit
Just
harsh.
the hope that it will be uploaded.
That's a bit harsh. So now, when you line them up, you line Oparanya, and then you line Natembeya, and you line Mudavadi, and you line Wetangula. How do you measure them? I mean, who is the most popular? Who is the second? Who is the third? Who is the fourth as we speak right now?
In terms of popularity, Mudavadi has a national appeal.
A national appeal or a community appeal?
No, Mudavadi has a national appeal.
In fact, it's said to be more presidential.
He is more national than communal.
Within the community, he seems to have a national appeal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he seems to have a national appeal. He is a person who you'd be able to talk to someone in Turkana and they will be able to tell you they know who Mudavadi is. They know Mudavadi was a minister. Of course, it's also based on the fact that he's been there for a while. And also, when many people look at Mudavadi, he's one of those politicians that, whereas people might not necessarily like him, they also don't have a problem with him. That is one thing about give it to him. So he has that national appeal. I argue that his nationalness, if there's a word in English like that, is even more than actually his communal appeal. That's why even in the previous election, his own MCA, I think, is one on UDA, not even ANC per se. And even ANC has more presence in is it Kilifi?
So then he's a fraud.
Not necessarily.
In the sense that, okay, you have this larger than life figure outside here, but when you go back to your backyard, what do you have to show for it?
Because you have to...
You know, we have people, Jagero, who might not necessarily have a heavy communal presence, but they have a national presence. Let me give you another example of someone like Mukhisa Kitui. Mukhisa Kitui is more likely to get a more national approval than necessarily a community approval.
He would not
let me give you another example from your own community, Jagero. There's a gentleman who is a journalist called Larry Mado. If Larry Mado ran for election somewhere in Nyanza, I don't know how much sense he would be able to make, but we cannot be able to refuse the fact that he has a national appeal.
Exactly.
So that is Mudavadi for you. He has a national appeal that is also built on his personality. His personality has been able to give him some appeal of some sort.
And that is, in fact, your example is perfect for what I am talking about.
Yes.
Because then if you are going to have Larry Madowo in State House to help you with Nyanza vote,
exactly
where we are going.
That is exactly what I'm talking. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That you cannot. But in terms of the national appeal, trust me, he actually has a national appeal. So Mudavadi also, that is anchored on his personality. He has this personality that does not draw too much hatred on it. It might not necessarily draw too much love, but it also does not draw too much hatred around it. So that is Mudavadi for you.
So
and then his
Mudavadi, according to
experience,
you, would take position 1.
he would take position 1 because of his national appeal. Then I would give tact to the Speaker of the National Assembly. When you look at Honorable Moses Wetangula, he is a shrewd politician.
How so?
He's a shrewd politician because when I look at it, Moses Wetangula is one of the only politicians who would be able to even get himself at the apex of the political decision-making table, despite not having the numbers that required for it. Now, you don't do that by luck. You do that by being a shrewd politician. Today, he is the Speaker of the National Assembly. That makes him third in command. But when you look at the political value that he actually brought to the table, it does not equate to that. Previously,
how bad was it?
And previously,
how bad was it?
It was not very good. Now, and for you to show that it's not just luck, you look at what is the history. Again, he was the minority leader in the Senate in the previous regime. And when he was the minority leader in the Senate, he was the only senator on his party in that Senate, but he was the head of the senators. Now, that speaks to how a man can be able to be a good negotiator and how a man can be a shrewd politician. Now, that is Moses Wetangula for you. He is one guy who politically, he has learned the art of maneuvering, and he's, for politicians of his age, even in the region, I think he's one of the few remaining ones still at the helm, because you look at the likes of Muskari Kombo, we forgot about them a long time ago. Mohisa Kitui, now the best he can make is a spokesperson of United Opposition with nothing to speak about. So when you look at it that way...
He was on TV the other day at Fixing the Nation or somewhere.
Was he speaking for United Opposition? Because the last was I had, he was being appointed. He was holding brief as spokesperson. Now, those are the caliber of people that have grown with Moses Wetangula. When you look at where they are vis-a-vis where Wetangula is, you can give it to him. This is a shrewd politician who, at one point when his party almost got lost, he was able to battle it out in the courts, and somehow Ford Kenya did not get lost. And he has always somehow ensured that even when push comes to shove, he does not agree to dissolve his political party. Even today, when ANC is part of UDA, because now there is no ANC party, Ford Kenya still stands. So the gentleman is a shrewd politician, but the problem is that he has carved himself too much within the Bungoma politics. He's more interested in the control of Bungoma more than the country. If he was able to just move a bit and widen his wings more, he would allow growth in Bungoma, and then he would allow more younger people in Bungoma to come to the fore, and then even he would now become a better...
Young people like you.
Exactly. Thank you for that example.
And then you'll go to Natembeya.
And then I'll go to Natembeya. Natembeya, in my view, is a product of luck. He's a guy who came into the political scene anchored on what was happening with him as a regional commissioner. And now, you know, when you're a regional commissioner, it's not necessarily about you. It's a system, it's a government system that works. But it can work for your advantage because, after all, you are the RC. And so because of that, when he came into the political fold, people felt like there's this new breath of fresh air. That there's this commando now who has arrived on the scene, and he'll be able to whip things and get things clean. So he came on that background. But when he got into office, that was not able to be seen. And so there was silence for some time. Exactly. And then somewhere along the way, there was some luck again with the Tawe movement. Now he again got lucky, and now
The
somehow
Tawe movement has been embraced by the entire community.
it now got embraced by the entire community, and even not just the community, even outside the community, we have people who really feel enthusiastic about. Actually, I feel Natembeya is even getting more popular outside the community than within the community. But then now when you go down to the realities now, for instance, in Trans Nzoia County, for instance, and get the opinion of the people in Trans Nzoia County, how do they feel about his leadership? Because unfortunately, he came in with people thinking there will be a reform agenda. He looked like the face of reform. But that has not happened because we are only at a point where we are praising him for Tawe movement, yet he is a governor. And so the voting block of today that I'm telling you is quite analytical, is asking itself, wait a minute, okay, fine. Then what has he done as governor? Don't we have things that we can be able to praise him over as governor? He has become another James Orengo. He has become another James Orengo who the only language he understands is the language of activism. Yeah. And so every time he rises to speak, he tells us about struggle. He tells us about struggle every other time and how we should be struggling to get to the next level. He forgets that he's now governor. He now got a piece of cake that now there's somewhere you are given to govern. Can you be able to show us an example of how the country can be governed? The country that you saw, the country that you have always said is being governed the wrong way. Now you have a piece of the country called Siaya County. Now that Siaya County, can we be able to see the model of the country that we need to be? That is the same with our guy from Trans Nzoia. Away from people saying Tawe, away from him telling us that our children are watchmen, away from him telling us that Musalia has done the wrong thing and Wetangula has not helped us, away from that, can he be able to be showing us the model of how transformative things are supposed to be? We should be able to be looking at Trans Nzoia, for instance, and saying, as changed and transformed as Trans Nzoia is, so shall the country or the region be. And on that particular thing, we will now be able to follow you. When people follow you on the basis of purpose in that manner, then it becomes sustainable. But when people follow you on the basis of emotions and chants, then it's purely paper fire. It can't be sustained for long.
The question then I would ask you is this.
Yeah.
So we have Ruto.
Yeah.
When he's saying Tawe to the government of Ruto, who is he saying Tawe to?
He's saying Tawe to everything, including the government of Ruto. It's pure, as I'm telling you, it's purely populist. It's just
so
saying,
assuming that he's saying Tawe to the president or to the government of Kenya, then that means that he's also saying Tawe to Mudavadi and Wetangula.
Yeah.
Okay? But we have Wetangula and Mudavadi together in the same camp with Ruto.
Yes.
Right? So then when it comes to 2027, he would want to say that, all right, we need something else. But he's also decided that he's no longer running for presidency. So that leaves him out.
Yes.
So that effectively means that he's going for a second term.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
So then it's useless.
Extremely, because let me tell you, in fact, he's extremely useless to united opposition because at the time when it matters the most, he will be busy struggling to retain his term. Because so far, already, you have Chris Wamalwa, who was quite a strong candidate in the last election.
Related?
And
related to Wamalwa himself?
No. Wamalwa is just a lawyer name that many people can have.
Yeah, when you say Chris Wamalwa now, we are starting to think whether there is a relation.
Chris Wamalwa was, I think, in fact, the top contender in the last gubernatorial election in Trans Nzoia. He was the candidate to beat. Now, that remains the case today. So in the next election, there will be Chris Wamalwa, who is not a pushover. And now I've also seen the former Cabinet Secretary of Health, Susan Nahumicha, has also come to the fore. Now, that makes two very powerful people for Natembeya to actually contend on the ground. So Natembeya will be too focused on the Trans Nzoia politics that he will have no time to help Rigiji explain to people the problems of William Ruto in Nyeri. It will be impossible. He will not have that time.
Why are we talking about Nyeri?
No, because Rigiji campaigns in Nyeri and essentially the larger Mount Kenya region.
Yeah, I've never understood why he has not gone to Homa Bay. Should have been on Homa Bay. Should have been trusting.
I think maybe he'll go. I'm still waiting for him to go to. I've seen everyone has been going to pay their last respect to Raila Odinga. I'm still waiting to see Rigiji do the same? Because I think he should.
He has not gone?
No,
Not yet.
Oh, really?
Not yet.
Okay, I think, well, Chuka, in finishing, what do you think about the issue of Luhya land? Do you think that Natembeya is going to swing anything? Because it looks like the status quo remains, according to the gentleman.
That's when you mentioned we were supposed to do Luhya politics, and I thought that in the history of this country, maybe it's the Luhya land that has sort of managed to vote at least objectively across the years, if you are to be fair to them, because at some point they were looking at what Raila offered to them, because they gave him the bigger weight, and they were saying this is a reasonable man.
Yeah.
He's not one of us, but he's talking the points that the community can also benefit from, and also the bigger flame of Kijana Wamalwa, that we need a social justice system, that we need devolved units to work. We also need healthcare that can serve all people.
Yeah.
So this appealed to them as a community.
Yeah. He also told us he's a Wanga.
Yes. And so that galvanized this larger community that for people looking in.
It's very interesting that Raila would go on record saying that he's a lawyer and yet still remains a demigod in Lowland. What was that, my friend?
Now that happens when your brand is too big.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, when there's a place your brand gets to, and we always talk about branding on DWJ. There is a place your brand gets to, and then it lets you fly, and people will accept you whichever way. Yeah, it's the way we say when Obama became president, all of us have a piece of him. They will say he's Kenyan. Even Nigerians will say he's African.
So the brand is leading. So in terms of political air, I think it's the same mistake that Moses Wetangula sort of made, but I don't know whether they're using the same formula, because Wetangula got to a point where he said, I do not have the larger appeal. My politics is mostly in terms of how can we negotiate at the back end. And you see, back end is just as important as the front end. As a tech, you can actually understand both, because there's a collaboration in. And mostly the politics of our country is at the back end. Yeah. Especially in terms of lobbying, in terms of self-interest pursuit. These usually happen very much so where the common mwananchi does not see it. And that's why I think he got to a point where he says, Mudavadi is very presidential. When you look at him, he's very diplomatic. This is the quality of a president you see in him. In fact, that's why many people have even imagined him as a president. That is why at some point he has also tried to throw himself to become one of the presidents of Kenya. So when we look at all these people, we're looking at the status quo keep ringing back to us. And that's what I was telling you, Ruto is more likely to retain the status quo, because there is no contender. There's no political contender that can actually stir or create a turmoil, because turmoil is what might remove Ruto. But turmoil is not just turmoil. We have gotten to a point where, as much as, yes, we are still, because we are in the denial grief period of our we are actually mourning our politics. We are mourning our politics because it can no longer sustain itself the way we have done it over the last 60 years. We need to start being more honest with ourselves, because that radical honesty is what actually even punctured Gen Z movement, because people are asking them, okay, you have issues that you are putting in place that you want addressed. But then again, that cannot, politics cannot work in a vacuum. We don't have an authority vacuum problem. We have a work problem. And work sometimes needs you to be honest with yourself. Say that I am a limping person, so I cannot do the bigger run. I need somebody to actually do the bigger run.
Sure.
You understand? I and myself, I'm looking at, I've all done my politics in terms of tribe. But tribe needs sometimes, wherever we want to make, the steps we want to make, means that at some point I have to be capable, as a Rigiji, I have to be able to go to Homa Bay. I have to be able to go to Mombasa. I have to be able to go to Northeastern. You see, that is the kind of honesty that Rigiji doesn't have, because he has sort of collapsed himself back to the older politics. And people are asking difficult questions, including the very tribesmen that he's banking on. So when you put all this collage of Luhya politics, I do very much agree with him, and maybe I don't think he might win the gubernatorial elections, because he has a bigger headache there.
So this explains the reason why Ruto had to go for both men.
Yes.
And have different conversation with them, because he knew that each and everyone is coming with a piece of the Luhya community.
If you ask me, Jagero, I tend to think Ruto needed them more for perception than for the vote. Because as per that time, the community and most of the people had actually started reading from the Ruto scripts. All he needed was the legitimization of it. Because again, in Kenya, you must have the vote and the legitimacy of the vote. So him getting Musalia and Wetangula more or less stamped the authority on the vote and legitimized it even further. It's not necessarily that it created the vote. It just was able to galvanize the vote. It's the same thing that we always talk about Mount Kenya, and people say that Rigiji brought the Mount Kenya vote to William Ruto, and I totally disagree, because the Mount Kenya vote was already with William Ruto. All he needed is an emblem of a person of the Mount Kenya origin to be able to legitimize the vote, and anyone would have actually done it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We are past the hour. I thought that it was going to be a very short thing. Good thing is that we started with a commercial break. And that gave us some 10 minutes to work with. Thank you very much, people of the internet. We are having our town hall on the 28th. This is this Friday at a Fungamano House starting at 2 p.m. Please be there. You just go to politicalheadache.co.ke and then you can reserve your seat there. We are going to be talking about ODS debt, whether it is something that Kenya can look into. So thank you very much. Please consider subscribing to Political Headache on YouTube. Hit on that notification bell. On our socials, you can follow us there on TikTok, on Facebook, and everywhere else. Until another episode, bye for now.